So let's talk about the specificity. We're going to see what kind of conflicts we used to have when we write the CSS. So what I did up until now is very simple, just a couple of divs with a couple of class names. It's something that you already know, you are familiar with, right? But now let's play with the styles. So if I add a couple of CSS rules, so first of all, I want to point to hello and I'm going to add the background color yellow, and then I have another element wall and background color blue. It just works, right? It's nothing very exciting. But I'm going to do something now. What happens if now I add a new class here called item, for example, and then I add a new rule, item background color green. So what will be the background color of our elements? Will it still remain yellow and blue, or will it be green? Stay the same. Stay the same? No, you're all wrong. Exactly. So this is read from top to bottom. So what that means? Up until now, on the first two blocks, that's correct. Originally speaking, the color is yellow and then the color is blue. But then this guy is going to overwrite the CSS property.
So what is in the bottom that rendered last?
Yes, because it comes last. Exactly. So if we go further and we inspect the DevTools, just pay attention to what I'm doing now. So if I select one item, look at on the right hand side. You see, we got hello here, and then background color yellow, but this is strike through. You see, so you can see a line here, like, yeah, that was originally set, but then it got overwritten by this other rule here.
Will the order of the class change in effect? I mean, in HTML?
Yep. So what do you want to change?
Between hello and item.
Yep. You want to change the order here?
Yes.
Okay. Good question. Good question. Will this make any effect? What do you think?
Yes, I don't know, it's like the green and yellow green. Yellow and blue.
So you think it will change? Okay, let's try. No, it doesn't change.
It takes the CSS.
Exactly. The order of the class names we declare doesn't have any effect, right? However, the order we declare the properties on the CSS has a huge impact. So if I do that, if I move the item to the top, what will happen now? Sorry? Blue, yellow and blue. Exactly, right? Because of the same principle. But then I'm going to go one step beyond, because obviously in here, right, we can clearly see that this green color is going to be ignored. We can see because, you know, immediately afterwards we are writing the values, but sometimes this is not the case. Sometimes we got this in one file and we got that in a different file. That's why sometimes it's harder to see who is causing the problems. So we can deal with this kind of specificity issues in many different ways. I'm going first of all to tell you what not to do, because you are going to get that question on your first job interview, so you should now pay attention and see what you should never do. And you're going to be asked, what do you think about that? So let me show you an example doing this. So say, okay, item is ignored, but if I do that, so the exclamation mark important suffix, if I do that, yeah, this wins. Yeah. So in other words, even though this is ignored, we can say, hey, wait a minute, this is very important, right? So please don't ignore me.
I've heard you should really be quite reluctant to use that.
Correct. Why?
It should be like a minimum, because it can really affect everything
Yeah, so this is a way to prove that we haven't been able to organize our CSS correctly. So this is very smelly. That proves that we're doing something wrong somewhere, right? Because then, if this is important, so whoever wrote that one say, no, but wait a minute, this is important too, right? So it's important as well, right? And then this is a big mess. It's very difficult to identify, you know. So don't do that. Never do that. If you do that, I mean, let's be realistic. In some cases, you may be forced to do it, but let's assume that if we do it, that's a really bad practice, right? So the thing is, we don't want to do that. So then, what can we do? So then we can start talking about things like name spacing. So I've seen that most of you got these kind of things on your CSS, but I don't particularly think that this is great because item is such a generic concept, it's such a generic principle that you may have so many class name item across your app and you don't want to be all of them background color green. So imagine that I want to just apply background color green to the elements on the gallery, but nowhere else. Do you know how can we do that?
So again, if you wanted to apply background green to where?
Yeah, so okay, let me change the example a bit. So I'm going to add another element here called div. So I'm going to add like 2 children elements, right? So I'm going just to copy and paste it. But look, so the first one, class name is first row, right? And then the second element is second row, not surprisingly. So at the moment, if I save the file, we're going to duplicate it with the same styling, right? Which makes sense. But let's imagine that without changing the HTML, we just want to change the color of the first row. So we want to change the color of the hello element of the first row. If I do that, if I change the color to purple, it will change both. But I just want to change the first one. How can we do it?
So you set up a
Change the
new one.
classes.
Hello, first row.
Hello
Dot first row.
dot first row, like that?
Yeah, and then add your properties, and then obviously you've still got your general hello, but you need to change it so that it's calling that particular property for that bit rather than
Okay.
the other.
So I don't want to change the HTML. I want to keep that untouched. I just want to play with CSS and solve the problem. Will this work? No?
I don't think so.
Why?
Can I just see the
Because it's not a proper class.
Yep. Yeah, that was very optimistic, right? Let me move it to the bottom. That may work.
I would just go first row and then the forward dash. Hello.
Okay, so right, I'll be taking a second.
I would just rearrange the CSS so that first row will overwrite whatever it's
Right, so
before.
give me a second. So let's see what happens if I save this example that David proposed. Now it's green. Why is green?
Because there is no hello dot first row.
Exactly. There is nothing matching this criteria. This is the same as typing something like that. It's going to be ignored, right? Why is it ignored? It's ignored because here we are telling, hey, please find an element with class name hello and class name first row. Do we have any element with these 2 class names?
No.
No. That's why it gets ignored. So what we wanted to do is we want to actually, exactly. Please note the space. This is important. So here you say, please find an element called first row, and then because of the space, inside of it, find another element called hello, and then change the color to purple. So if I save that file, you see that just the first hello box gets the color changed, right? So this is about specificity because we are being more specific here, right? So then, what happens if I reorder my CSS? So I've moved that block, first row hello, to the bottom. Will now hello be purple or will it be green because we define it below?
It's going to be green.
Green,
No, it will still be purple
purple. Green, purple, why?
because the first one's more explicit.
Exactly, it's more specific. It's more specific. We'll see in a second. If I save the changes, yeah, it didn't even refresh because there is nothing to refresh, but if I manually refresh, still purple, right? Obviously, we could still keep cheating by adding here an important flag, which I told you not to do it. It's super confusing, right? That's why avoid that, right? So we got some lessons about the specificity and what happened if I do item dot hello. You see, there is no space, so I'm telling A, find an item.
It's not going to brand or anything.
Is it not going to?
Just put a space between.
No, is it okay? So you said that I need to put a space. So do you think this is going to be ignored?
Yeah, based on previous example. Oh no, because it's in the right order.
You see, it's very subtle, but essentially what they say here is, please find an element that has two classes, item and hello. This is more specific than that. This is how CSS works, right? Any question? No? Right, so let's go one step beyond. Yeah?
What if we go back and just treat first row purple separate?
First row.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so you want to make a new rule at the top?
No,
First,
at the bottom.
at the bottom,
Uh-huh.
yeah.
Let's try if it overrides.
So this is first row,
Uh-huh.
and then what?
Background color,
Like that?
red.
Right.
And then delete first row from hello, first, hello.
Delete that one.
No, just the first row.
Right, like that.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And maybe when item hello, just delete item.
Delete.
No, yeah, just item, just the class.
Like that?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Let's have a look.
Right. So let's review before saving. So first of all, we said, hey, please, hello has background color purple. Right? That's it. We'll get it. However, immediately after, we said, no, I've changed my mind. Now hello is green. So definitely this is going to be ignored. This will never happen.
Okay, just yeah.
But then let's keep reading. Then we talk about world. It's completely unrelated, so that's still valid, no problem. But then we got something called first row with background color red. So question, yes or no? Will we see any red on the screen?
I would say the first row will be red.
Yes. Yes. Okay, I'm going to play harder. You said yes. And if I do that,
Other.
definitely, lots of reds, right? Lots of reds everywhere. You are all wrong. There is no red. I give you a hint about why there is no red. Look at what I'm doing. If you don't understand that, please watch the video we recorded yesterday. Oh, we got red now. Can anyone tell me why?
Because the div is
Exactly. First row is the parent, right? Look, it's the parent, right? That's why they attack different elements. That's why originally, not Safari, thank you for nothing. That's why originally we didn't get any red, even if it's important. I mean, technically speaking, it's there. It's red. It's red. Actually, if I manage to change something here, you see, it's there. But the problem is it's hidden because the elements, they got Yeah, exactly. So for instance, if I change the color green to transparent, you see, then you get the red, but not because of hello, but because of the parent surrounding hello. Yeah, makes sense?
Yeah.
Cool.
Play with opacity.
Right, so then I'm going to make it slightly more complicated. So you know that if we add a dot, we want to refer what kind of attribute?
Class.
Class, correct. But in some cases, right, we may have other type of selectors. So the one that I'm sure you probably know already is the ID, right? So ID hello, right? If we do that, ID hello, then we can add a new rule. I'm going to remove that one because this is pointless. So I'm going to add a new rule after the class name with the hash, not the pound, with the hash hello, right? So then we can change the background color again. So I'm going back to purple. So what the background color of hello will be now? Purple or green? Purple. Exactly. And then next question, if I move, yeah.
Is that because the ID supersede the class name?
But there are two options, right? So there are two possibilities. So the first option is what Aaron is suggesting, that the ID is more important than the class name. That could be a good reason. The other alternative is because we wrote that after the class name, right?
Yeah.
So, okay.
I heard there's a point system.
Yes.
There's a point system to ID is like, I think it's like 20.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
And the tag is like 1 or whatever. So
That's absolutely correct.
add them up, right?
That's correct. So when you your first job interview, you are going to get the question what specificity means. The valid answer is it's a number. That's the right answer because at the end, as Chris says, depending on what you do, you get a different score.
Yeah.
So the element, the rule with higher score will win. Right? That's pretty much it. I'll be honest, I don't remember the scoring system. I know the priorities, but I don't remember if an ID scores 20, 50, or 100. I don't know.
Yeah.
But definitely, we know that the ID will get a high score, right? So then I'm going to do that. I'm going to move the rule affecting the ID to the top. Will now the color be purple or green? Purple. Why? Exactly, because of the scoring system. So even though we are trying to rewrite the color, still the ID wins because the ID is supposed to be unique, right? That's why if you explicitly set a rule pointing to the ID, this will be very strong, very bold, right? So if we try again, you can see that still the color is purple. And if we inspect in the DevTools, you can see that Chrome agrees on that, right? So we got class names, we got IDs. Do you see any other way to attack our DOM elements? Any other kind of attributes? No? Okay, so there are at least two more ways to write CSS. The first one is with what we properly call attributes. In other words, I'm going to I'm going to leave the ID, but on the wall, the line below, I'm going to do something like that. So we can create custom attributes. A custom attribute could be something like that. You see, we can type whatever we want here. So if we do that, then we can refer to that attribute on the CSS with square brackets.
And how does this attribute called?
Attribute.
Just attribute.
Yeah, so the technical way to refer to anything on the tag, this, or that, these are attributes. Yeah? Actually, you will see that on JavaScript, there is something called set attribute. I'm not going to explain that now, but this is just to prove my theory, right? Look, we can take an element and set an attribute with the name of the attribute, the class name, and the value. Right, so let's see what happens if we change the color again to yellow, maybe. Right, it's complaining because of, yes, so the problem we got here is that even though technically speaking we can have empty attributes, we just got the key, React is suggesting to add a value. So we could do something like that, hopefully. Exactly, right? So you see that if I got an attribute called world, then I can refer to it with square brackets. But then I'm going to give you another example. What happens if I add a new div element and I respect the attribute, but I change the value? World again. Question. Will the yellow color, I'm going to change yellow because then you cannot see anything. So I'm running out of colors, guys. I'm not a colorful guy, but can you suggest any color? Cyan? Gray?
Cyan.
Okay, yeah, okay, fair enough. Right. So you see that if we have multiple attributes, right, they will all be affected by the CSS rule, which is something you may expect, right? But then the question is, what happens if we want to set the cyan color just if wall attribute equals true, but not if wall attribute equals false?
You probably have to give the value in the CSS as well.
Yeah, that's correct, Sultan. So this points to every attribute called wall, regardless of the value of the attribute. However, we can do that. We can say wall equals and then the value. So we want that to be true. So in that particular case, you are going to tell me, you can assume that on the second element, wall, the color will be cyan. But what will be the color of the last element again?
Cyan as well.
It will be cyan as well. Why?
Because you haven't specified the false.
And
You've specified world
yeah, wall equals true.
equals to
Yeah. So what will be the value of again?
blue.
Blue.
The first one will be
So
cyan.
Sultan suggested blue. Is there any other
The one should
proposal? Blue. So you said that this item will be blue. Can anyone tell me why this will be blue?
Because it's the true world is very specific to that part of
Yeah.
the world.
Yeah, and then?
The only other available
Yeah.
CSS file would return blue. So
Why?
The rest of the world's still an attribute that you've registered it. So
I disagree.
It's logical.
Yeah, it's logical that I disagree. And the reason is, so I agree this will be cyan. But in here, you're proposing blue. To be blue, what is the blue? It's here. The element should have the world class. And I don't see any world class here. So it cannot be blue. It's impossible. It will never be blue. So it may be something on item or on again. Do we have any reference to item or again? No. So then the color will be
Cyan.
cyan. Why?
No, no
Random
cyan. Like maybe on spine or just black.
default color. Exactly. And what's the default color?
Black.
No, it's not black.
Transparent.
Transparent. Yeah. So if I say that, hopefully I'm not wrong. but I would say that world is going to be cyan, but again, it's going to be, yes, black because it's transparent. So as the root background is black, so it will feel like it's black, right? Here you go, I'm right. Right? Any question? Right, so can you figure out any particular scenario? No, sorry, let me go back. So in reality, I'll tell you that 90% of the time you are going to play with classes, right? That's how it works. I'm even going to remove the ID. Yeah, I think IDs are today in modern development pointless. But there are some particular scenarios where attributes make a lot of sense, where you are definitely going to use attributes to style your application. Can you think about any of them?
Dynamic changes.
No? Well, dynamic changes, yeah, could be dynamic changes, but you can also have dynamic changes on the class name. So that's not particularly relevant. So I'll show you an example. This is something that you haven't touched yet. We'll start on task number 45 or so. I'm talking about inputs, right? At some point, we're going to enter data. So how do we enter data? If we have an input, type text, value, hello, right? So let's see how this looks like, right? You got an error. Yeah, well, this is reacting. You can ignore the error. But you got the input, right? There is an input here. But then imagine that at the bottom, we want to add another input. It's not text, it's the password. You see, input, text, input, password. In some particular cases, we may want to have different styles, for instance, to the password input, right? To every password input. I don't want to have a class name for every time I want to add a password input. So for that particular case, what we can do is here is type equals password, right? So this rule will purely target that line here. Exactly. Yeah. Does it make sense? Cool. Last thing for today. So we've talked about classes, we've talked about IDs, we've talked about attributes, but there is a fourth way to build up our styles.
Inline.
No. Right.
In CSS. You mean.
In CSS, yes. Classes, IDs, attributes, and tags. What a tag is. Div is a tag. Input is a tag. BR is a tag. So the tag is the first element of the line, right? Why this is important? Because, I mean, in some cases we want to style all the inputs, right? I don't care if it's password, if it's text, if it's an email, if it's a phone number, I don't mind. I just want to say, hey, all the inputs, background, color is something that I'm going to make up. It's kind of blue, right? So if I do that, you see all the inputs will become blue, right? And again, input is a good example about when do we want to play with CSS at tag level. This will be also valid for links. At some point, you'll add links to your website, right? So sometimes we want to style all the links, right? So if I got a link, so href equals, you got that with a link tag because you are using the React router, but in reality, you got a link, so that's what you get in real time. So click here to go to homepage. You've done this kind of things already, right? So for that particular case, we can change the color to the link. You see, right? Because sometimes we want to change all the links at the same time, right? To keep the same styling, yeah, overall. Right? Any question? Nothing? So it's exactly 30 minutes. So thank you very much and see you later.
Good.